At 3:42 p.m. local time in Ethiopia's Afar region, the ground trembled. The air split with a deafening roar, and the sky turned black. What followed was something no living human being had ever witnessed: the eruption of the Haile Gubbi volcano, a mountain that has slept for more than 12,000 years. Today, it woke up violently, unleashing a blast so powerful that satellites orbiting hundreds of kilometers above Earth captured the plume instantly. For the people living in the sparsely populated desert plains below, it began as a deep rumble, like distant thunder rolling through stone. Then came a shockwave, a massive pressure pulse that shattered windows and knocked people off their feet miles away. Within minutes, a column of ash and smoke punched into the sky, rising higher and higher until it reached nearly 14 kilometers in altitude, spreading outward like an enormous grey umbrella blocking the sun. The eruption struck with no warning. Scientists had recorded only minor seismic activity before the event, not nearly enough to predict that a dormant volcano, inactive for millennia, was about to explode back to life. And the scale of the blast stunned experts worldwide. This wasn't a gentle lava flow or a dome collapse. This was an explosive eruption, a sudden detonation of built-up magma pressure ripping through the Earth's crust in a catastrophic release of energy. Residents from nearby villages described seeing the entire horizon flash bright red, followed by a rising tower of fire and ash. One man said it was like watching a bomb go off inside a mountain. Another described how the sky turned from blue to pitch black in seconds. Ash fell so quickly that people struggled to breathe, covering their faces with cloths as they fled through choking darkness. The Ethiopian government immediately activated emergency protocols. Ash clouds drifted across dozens of kilometers, blanketing grazing lands and farmlands in layers of grey dust. Livestock scattered in panic. Roads disappeared beneath ash and falling debris. Many of the region's nomadic communities, who rely heavily on their animals for food and income, now face a crisis that may last for months. Meteorologists say the volcanic plume punched into the stratosphere, something only powerful eruptions can do. Once ash reaches that height, it spreads globally, affecting aviation, air quality, and even climate patterns. Within hours, international airlines began rerouting or cancelling flights that pass over the Horn of Africa. India's Air India and Akasa flights were among the first affected, forced to divert routes to avoid the ash-contaminated sky. Pilots reported visibility near zero in some sectors, with volcanic ash scattering radar signals and reducing clarity. Satellite images released minutes after the blast showed a massive, mushroom-shaped cloud spreading rapidly, stretching across Ethiopia, Eritrea, Djibouti, and drifting toward the Arabian Peninsula. The eruption sent shockwaves through global weather systems as well, with some scientists warning that sulfur dioxide emissions could potentially alter regional temperatures if the eruption continues. But the immediate danger lies on the ground. Entire communities in the Afar region have been blanketed by ashfall thick enough to collapse roofs and bury farmland. Emergency responders are rushing to distribute masks, food and water to families who fled their homes with nothing but the clothes on their backs. The air is heavy with sulfur and volcanic gases, burning the throats and eyes of anyone caught outside. Ashfall has contaminated water sources in multiple districts. Wells, the main water supply for many Afar communities, are now filled with gritty grey sediment. Authorities warn that using these wells could cause illness, forcing residents to rely on emergency water tanks and military deliveries. The initial eruption lasted several hours, with continuous explosions launching molten rock and ash into the sky. Lava began to flow from a fissure along the volcano's flank, carving through dry desert ground as it moved downhill. Although the lava currently threatens only sparsely populated areas, the long-term damage to grazing land and livestock corridors could be devastating. Scientists worldwide are stunned by this eruption. Haile Gubbi was considered dormant, not extinct, but its last known eruption took place around the end of the last ice age. The fact that such a quiet mountain has now erupted with major explosive force raises serious questions about the entire volcanic system beneath the Afar Triangle, one of the most geologically active regions on Earth. The Afar Triangle is where three tectonic plates, the Arabian, Nubian, and Somali plates, slowly pull away from each other. This rifting creates cracks in the Earth's crust, allowing magma to rise closer to the surface. Many volcanoes in this region erupt frequently, but Haile Gubbi did not. It was a silent mountain, considered stable. Now volcanologists fear this eruption might be a sign of deeper changes in the rift zone. Some say rising magma levels across the region could mean more eruptions in the future. Others warn that the ground deformation from today's blast could destabilize nearby faults, triggering earthquakes. People living near the volcano were thrown into chaos. Reports from small communities describe scenes of terror as homes shook violently. Parents shielded children from falling ash. Livestock ran in panic, disappearing into thick clouds of dust. Many fled toward open desert, trying to escape the suffocating air near the eruption center. Social media videos show a near-apocalyptic landscape. Deep red lava glowing in the distance, black clouds swirling overhead, and ash falling like snowflakes onto a world turned grey. Cars and trucks stuttered to a stop as volcanic debris clogged engines. Solar panels and roofs collapsed under the weight of ash. Radio towers went offline, leaving communities cut off from communication. Even hours after the eruption, the sky remained dark across large parts of Afar. Ashfall spread so thickly that visibility dropped to just a few meters in some areas. Emergency crews wearing protective masks and goggles struggled to navigate the terrain, calling out for survivors through masks muffled by the grit in the air. International aid groups are preparing to assist. The United Nations is monitoring the situation, warning that volcanic eruptions in remote, already vulnerable regions like Afar can turn into long-term humanitarian crises due to loss of livestock, contaminated water, and food shortages. Ethiopia has already been dealing with severe drought in some regions. Now those same regions face volcanic ash poisoning their soil. Scientists are also studying whether this eruption could impact global weather. When volcanic ash reaches the stratosphere, it can lower temperatures by reflecting sunlight away from Earth. Early calculations suggest the sulfur output from this eruption is significant. Not enough to trigger a global cooling event, but enough to affect local and regional climates for months. Airlines remain on alert. Aviation agencies warn pilots that flying through volcanic ash is extremely dangerous. It can melt inside engines, causing them to stall mid-flight. Several Middle Eastern and African carriers have already changed flight paths to avoid the ash cloud drifting across the Red Sea. The eruption could also intensify. Seismic instruments continue to record tremors beneath the volcano. These tremors may indicate more magma rising toward the surface. Scientists fear the eruption may enter a second phase, potentially with larger explosions or new fissures opening along the volcano's flanks. For now, residents are being told to remain indoors or evacuate if ordered. Masks are being distributed to protect against inhaling ash, which can damage lungs and cause long-term health issues. Emergency shelters are crowded. Families sit together in darkness, listening to the distant thunder of the volcano that changed their lives in a single afternoon. Satellite footage shows the lava flow cutting across the landscape like a glowing river. As night falls, the orange glow becomes even more visible, illuminating the ash cloud above with an eerie red light. The world is watching, not just because this is a rare geological event, but because it represents a sudden awakening of a volcano, long believed to be harmless. Haile Gubbi, silent for 12,000 years, has returned with force. And tonight, as ash continues to fall and tremors shake the earth beneath Ethiopia's Afar region, scientists, residents, and global agencies all ask the same question. Is this the beginning, or just the first eruption in a much larger volcanic cycle?